Rich people, don't be jealous of us poor people. Don't be jealous of us poor people. You see, the poor peoples want to feel that they have something by themselves for themselves. The little bit of hunger and starvation that they have. Let us keep it, rich peoples. Okay? This is called neurosis of the rich. The rich people get neurotic when they think about the attention that's being paid to the old poor people. The song explains itself. Neurotic rich people. I hope you're ready for big English, you know. This one is not a simple, ordinary jump and jam, you know. Big English. Pull out your dictionary and take it. Contrary to yesterday, when wealth was a social law, the official concern today revolves around the poor. The sexual fancies and wild emotion, unemployment, education, ethnic composition have now become interesting studies of exhaustive attention. The rich cannot understand poor people getting so much attention. They cannot live with this rejection. Yes, they would like to be the object of concern, but idleness has no value of its own. The methodology of conspicuous consumption and waste. The display of diamonds and ruby is now commonplace. For the theory today is that wealth in its fear is a source of destruction, frustration, and fear. For the wealthy, life is built on despair. Sing it again. For the wealthy, life is built on despair. See this sell a rocking chair for $270-something thousand. That's what they do with money. That's why I could never be rich. Once upon a time, people only had to know that you had more than just a dime to make you a big hero. But now that present scholars and great professors, academic educators, religious advisors occupy all their time working on some Save the Poor project, the rich get very upset at the attention poor people get. They see themselves as sad victims of neglect. Yes, they have so much, but to find companionship every month, they have to take a pleasure trip to gamble away loads of money on roulette and dice. Coasting and toasting and boasting to be recognized. Knowing deep down inside they are faced with extinction, for wealth in itself is no sort of distinction. They exist in a state of disillusion. Sing it again. Yes, they exist in a state of disillusion. Shabba doing da, baba da ba doing da, da ba da ba da ba da ba. Tell them I want to hear. So sad when a high-class broad, ravaged by gross ill health, Papa, you throw she pride overboard. Then combining her rank and wealth with obesity, swollen, tortured face, advanced nymphomania, and repellent grace. Pay out large sums of money trying to procure some loving. But true love, I must insist, cannot be captured like this. No, it just cannot be purchased. So they will flock to bars, luncheons and parties, flashing cars, and counting calories in an effort to create distractions. Very great distraction. Flaunting the rank and the wealth to gain acceptance. But that feeling of guilt from deliberate mistakes, night after night, keeps them ever awake. Money heartaches, it's too much for them to take. Sing it again. Money heartaches, it's too much for them to take. That is all you got to say. Money heartaches, it's too much for them to take. Money heartaches, it's too much for them to take.
Oh yes, good evening and welcome to yet another edition of Politics 101. Politics 101. We are here as usual at this time in the evening, doing it as only we can do it and contributing to the work of survival, the work of overcoming, the work of freedom. Wherever you are on this evening, welcome to Politics 101. If you are in Guyana, all over Guyana, wherever in Guyana, we welcome you to our program. If you are joining us from our Caribbean, take into consideration those fools who are saying our Guyana is not part of the Caribbean, and some of us are taking them on, but it's nonsense. As I've said over and over again over the last couple of days, the Caribbean is not an island construction. The Caribbean is a region. Caribbean is not the Lesser Antilles, and the Greater Antilles. The Greater Antilles and the Lesser Antilles, those are island constructions. But the Caribbean has always been a regional construct. So nobody has to invite Guyana to the Caribbean or bring us into the Caribbean. You all tell them, David Hines say, the Caribbean is a regional construct, and Guyana has always been part of the Caribbean. Our Caribbean, wherever you are, whether you are in St. Martin or you are somewhere in Nevis or you are in the Bahamas. Yes, the Bahamas, which may not see itself politically as the Caribbean because it's so close to the United States, but regionally it is part of our Caribbean. Welcome to all of you who are joining us. Those of you who are joining us from further afield in the Americas, whether you're in North America, the United States of America, Canada, whether you're somewhere there in Central America, which itself is part of the Caribbean, the Atlantic side of Panama, you go there, lots of Bajans, lots of Jamaicans, some Guyanese, they went there to work on the Panama Canal. You know, I tell you, Garvey spent a lot of time there in Panama, whether you were on the Atlantic side of Costa Rica or Belize. Belize is made up, you know, of some Vincentians. You know, black people mix up with Native Indians, Amerindians. The British felt they were too dangerous. They put them on a boat and put them in the Caribbean Sea. They ended up there on the coast of Central America, the Garafunas. They're there in Belize and Honduras and Guatemala. They're all part of our Caribbean. the Caribbean side of Mexico. You know, they used to hide black people, you know. Mexico is to say we don't have black people. More than 1 million of our people are there in Mexico. The Caribbean region, the Caribbean Sea washes on the coast of Central America, South America, Colombia. On a good day, if you stand on one of those hills in Trinidad, you can see Venezuela. Original construct. Good evening to all of you. Welcome to Politics 101. The Mighty Sparrow, Neurosis of the Rich. And I continue to play this music because I want to emphasize, first of all, it's the mother music of the English-speaking Caribbean, Calypso. But secondly, there's no other music like it. Only in Calypso can you hear a thesis about the rich and the poor, a comparative analysis of poverty and wealth in song. Only in Calypso. You can imagine that in classical music. We have contributed a lot to emancipating the world from mental slavery. And Calypso has done that. The Mighty Sparrow, singing that song in 1975, The Neurosis of the Rich. It's not the other day sing it, 1975. At a time when we had just gotten independence in the Caribbean, and our scholars and academics, as he said, were grappling with issues of the poor. At a time when our struggles brought together labor, trade unions, radical political parties, putting it together and leading our struggle in those early years of independence. There wasn't a wall of separation between labor and freedom revolution. In fact, labor was leading the revolution. This past week on my monthly program on WEEA in Baltimore, I do a program there on the second Saturday of each month called the Caribbean Political Hour with Dr. David Hines. And this month we were discussing the 1930s, the 1930 rebellion, the 1930s rebellion. They call it the 1930s riots. And we were talking about how pivotal that decade is to shaping modern Caribbean life and Caribbean society. And we were making the point that even before the 1930s, that the struggle against slavery itself was a struggle of labor. Because slavery itself was about what? The exploitation of labor without pay. You all think this whole thing about labor and trade union and better pay and so on start today? On the plantation. And so we trace the development of what we call trade unionism right back to the slave plantation. And we are arguing that anti-slavery was grounded in the struggle for the liberation of labor. And so labor has always been central to everything that we have done. And so when we got to the 1930s, and from the Bahamas and Jamaica in the north, right down to Guyana in the south, workers under colonialism were rising up. They didn't meet anywhere in a central base and said, we will launch the 1930s rebellion. It was labor all across the region, the Caribbean region. It was a Caribbean movement. The 1930s, I argue on that program, as I've argued in my work, that the 1930s was not just the zenith of the trade union struggle, but it was also the beginning of the modern integration movement. The 1930s rebellion was about labor. It was about Caribbean labor. The first people who began to talk about Caribbean integration were the trade unionists coming back in 1919, 1920, 1919, coming back from a world labor meeting. They stopped. They stopped in Europe. They were there, and Du Bois at a Pan-African meeting. And some of them stopped and they came back to the Caribbean. And they began to talk about Caribbean independence. Of course, we know the story that it was in that year that the British Guyana Labour Union, you were Nathaniel Critchlow, the first labor union in the English-speaking Caribbean. And so, whatever we do, wherever we go, we have to put at the center of our struggle labor. Our people get up in the mornings and they put on their clothes and they go to work, whether as a civil servant or they go in the back dam to work as farmers, or they go to work as policemen and women. They're going to exchange their labor for a livelihood. And when they get paid, they take that money and they spend it. They spend that money to refresh their own labor value, to go back the next day, the next month, to work again. And the assault on human rights in Guyana today, the assault on political rights in Guyana today, is essentially an assault on labor rights. Labor. We have asked on this program, how can the party of Chedi Jagan be the party that is climbing over the heads of trade unions and trying to say that they are talking to workers behind the backs of trade unions? This month, October 1953, 70 years ago, the first self-government in Guyana was overthrown by the British. Overthrown. Guyana was invaded by the British. The British invading its own colony. Because that first government made some reforms. But what was the reform that drove the British to invade then British Guyana? They passed a law giving workers the right to organize in trade unions. The Trade Unions Recognition Bill. The British sent troops into Guyana for that. I want you all to hear me good. Overthrowing a government for what? Giving workers the right to organize as trade unions. Where are you going with this, David Hines? Where are you going with this? You know where you're going with it? I just hear some wrong talk. Don't worry, the union. And I'm not worried, union. If the government want to give you 2% back pay, take it, don't worry, the union. If the government want for giving more allowance, take it because it ain't gonna get taxed. Don't worry with no raise of pay and the union. Wrong talk. And sometimes it's talk that is uninformed. Workers of the world, unite. You have nothing to lose but your chains. The immortal words of Karl Marx, as far back as 1848. Workers of the world, unite. You have nothing to lose but your chains. And when a president said, don't bother with the workers, sorry, don't bother with the union, I gonna talk with the workers, what that president is doing is putting workers in chains. I'm telling you all again, I told you all last night, our politics must not be confined to changing parties. Vote out one party and vote in the other party. That is the starting of the work. Our politics have to be, having done that, what do you do for labor? What do you do to get labor out of the doldrums? Labor meaning our capacity to work and to produce wealth. Anyhow, who am I to talk about labor? There are people who have been in the trenches doing that forever. I read an editorial the other day written by the Stabroek News, which is no friend of labor, and it was asking whether the trade unions, and it talked about the proposals of the Trade Union Congress to the government for the upcoming budget. And it was asking whether, in fact, it will come to anything, given the attitudes of governments these days to trade unions, and given the attitude of our own government. But somewhere there, it said, at least we must give credit to Lincoln Lewis for staying the course. Over the years, government after government have been beating up on labor. And it said, at least we must give Lincoln Lewis credit for still believing. And sometimes we miss that. There are people who have stayed the course. Our guest tonight is Lincoln Lewis. No introduction. Brother Lincoln.
My brother.
How are
good
you?
Night. I am here following you day and if possible night.
Wonderful. You read that editorial by the Stabroek News, of course.
Yes, I did. I was sitting at a point on the Mavura Road area there. And the dust, the trucks were passing and the dust was there. And I got a call to say, check this editorial. And I read it.
You read the editorial.
I believe that it is an analysis of how Stabroek News sees it. Stabroek News is not merely a paper that loves labor, but at least they were prepared to see that the labor is being treated unfairly, and we need to get all hands and get down to the ground and do something about it. We have to stop.
Yes. And Lincoln, am I wrong in situating labor and the labor struggle for liberation, situating it as far as the slave plantation? As far back as
You are not wrong. You are not wrong. You are right in what you're doing. Definitely. It was a respect. It was a question there of in slavery. It's a question of you are taking our labor without pay under inhumane conditions, and what they were fighting for is not only for payment, but to be treated just and fair. That was, so your question, where you're situated it from slavery coming forward, you're right.
And of course, Lincoln, you are not just a trade union practitioner, you are a teacher. There's the Crystal Labor College there. You yourself, I know, have been on courses all over the region, all over the world on trade unionism. And so that there is scholarship, and you are familiar with that, the importance of the 1930s uprisings, the 1930s rebellions, their importance to shaping the modern Caribbean. Am I out of place there?
Let me say to you, David, when Critchlow hit the hammer in 1905, where he started that, they challenged the merchant class and the crown in Georgetown. I believe that in itself, for Guyana, is what kindled that awareness that we can unite regardless of the laws that are against us and fight back. Ask for what is justly ours. What we have got is that in 1990, around that point, when a number of the labor leaders in the region went on to Europe, and on the way back they stopped in England, and they started they started to build the camaraderie with the British, not only the British labor trade union, but the British Labour Party. What has happened is that when they returned to the region, give Critchlow his credit. He was the man who established the first trade union in the British Empire. The first trade union. When Critchlow established that union, they hadn't trade union in Jamaica. They hadn't trade unions as far as Australia. They hadn't trade unions in India, no way around. Critchlow was the man who started this process. But he was so organized, he was so committed to the cause that he went on in 1926 to bring together Caribbean labor leaders in Georgetown. Bring them together to talk about what is necessary. And that's where they formally took the position that you need what you call a British Guyana and West Indian Federation. It was the first process, or the first time in the history, the record will show it, that it was the first time, that 1926 conference that brought these leaders together. It is the first time that an integration movement started in the region. You're making a point there that a number of persons seek to miss, is that the trade union led the way. The trade union led the way. When the trade union was existing, started that process, there were no mass-based political parties in the region, right? And that brings us to the point in our own politics, where you spoke about 1953. Those guys in the late 40s, feeding off of the 30s, in the 40s, they in late 40s, what they did was to start to mobilize politically to put to get mass-based political party. Because if you remember, in 1926, they started to talk, Critchlow and those guys started to talk about universal adult suffrage, where they say one man, one vote. They started it. It is the trade union that started that. You know, we need to take note that Cheddy Jagan from the PPP and Janet Jagan, they were very strong while they were politicians. They were very strong on some issues. Let me give you an example. Experience I had with Janet Jagan. The trade union, the termination of employment and severance pay law originally said, it came out, you know, those laws came out from the 1950s, you know, from a commission established since then. It says that if a man works with an employer and he receives and he reaches a certain age, or he decides that he's going to resign, what that law had said originally is that that man must be paid severance for the period that he has contributed to that, he has worked with that company. The employers went to the government, the PPP government, and they argue that they must not pay. And when the cabinet decided that they will go with what the employer said, Janet was the president. She was just something. Janet was saying to us, or when we were talking to her, she said, look, I don't agree with this. I can't understand it. If a man work and build a company and he has to leave for some purpose, for some reason, why is it that you can't pay him for the contribution that he has made? Why the employer must get everything? But it was coming to the period when they were talking about globalization, when plenty of people believe that that neoliberal program, which placed the company ahead of the employees, was the best thing for us. So they went and they changed the law. So no longer, if a man worked 10 years or a man worked 15 years and he decides that he's going to leave, if he meets 60, he gets nothing. He gets nothing. So that is Janet for us. You know, notwithstanding Burnham, notwithstanding that you have had the challenges of the 1979, 70s, 79 with the $14 minimum wage, what he has never done is to decide that he's not going to talk with the trade union. Mm-hmm. What we have in this country, the benefit workers get, it is not the employers and the government give them. They achieve it is the trade union that represent the voices of the workers that struggle for such a thing, that argue for it. Okay? The current president, what surprises me is that I understand his parents come from the working class. They were teachers, someone or both of them were teachers. So we expect him to learn something from coming from a working class home. It is because of the struggles of his parents that certain benefits are being enjoyed. But Mr. Jagdew, I do not believe at any point that he understood anything, else but one to impose his will on people and dictate to them what must happen. Because as you study him, life lessons are different. So here we are now, at a point where there's a collaboration between employers, both foreign and local, to make money on the backs of workers. But in many occasions, the workers themselves, through not knowing or being forced or fair, contribute to their own exploitation. You made the point earlier when the president could have called the teachers and he could have said that he's going directly to the work, to the teachers and not the trade union. What the hell is he doing? And they themselves sitting down to say, we want allowances. They're asking for things, not understanding the implication. They only see the world as today. They don't see their world as tomorrow and the other days. My world must be seen not only through my lens, but through the lens of my children and grandchildren. My world must be seen that way. And their world ought to be seen that way. We are at a critical point. And I always believe, while there may be views by many that the trade union may be hopeless, I have hope. I have hope because the conditions were worse than this. Under slavery, our people fought back. This condition will continue for some time, but the people will fight back. Because so long you have unscrupulous employers, you are going to have workers, a few who will band together and want to make the first step to have a change. Yesterday, as I said to you, I said earlier, I was on the outside, going out on the Mabura Road there. I was talking to workers, and these are some workers who decide that they want trade union, and they invite me to come to talk with them. So in the midst of all that is happening, there are workers who are asking for trade unions. But the labor movement and labor leaders, we have to lead them into the direction that they ought to go if we are going to bring about the change we're talking about. You know, let me go back. We had self-help. We had the co-op movement in the early 19, like the first quarter, right? We had around 1910, 1915, 1920. We have had the cooperative movement. If you go back through the history and look at it, Dominica and those places, there were a lot of co-ops. They started then. This brings me to the point. It was in the 70s when the co-op movement, late 60s, early 70s, when the co-op movement started to take strong roots in this country. You have had a number of credit unions. You have had a lot of housing co-ops. Let's go back to it. You know Linden maybe as much as I know it, the physical locations. Amelia's Ward Self-Help Group was a co-op. Wizrock, phase 1, 2, 3, and 4, co-op. People work self-help was one of the elements in it. And at the end of it, you could have gone and push your key in and turn and you get your house. I'm raising these for you to understand that these were things that the trade union fought for. The issue of holiday with pay is the trade union that fought for that. It wasn't given by the employer. There was a time when a nurse who working in public service with the government could not have got pregnant and remain in the job.
Yes, yes.
Teachers and so on, but what has happened? The trade union fought for that. And I'll tell you what, the person under whose watch those things that happened was Janet Jagan, right? All these things that people take for granted now, it was fought for by their forebears in collaboration with the trade unions. What the younger generation has to take on board, ask themselves, they're benefiting from the legacy of the forebears. What legacy they're prepared to leave for those who are coming, for their children and grandchildren. Nobody, let me say to them, no one respect a weak man or a weak woman. And I call on the workers to recognize that. If you're weak at the workplace and you demonstrate weaknesses, the employer will capitalize on it. Capitalize on those weaknesses. And the employer will do what they want with you. We gotta stop it. I want to say to them too that the trade union is not the individual, it's not Lincoln Lewis, it's not Coretta McDonald, it's not Norris Witter, not Eslin Harris, not Aslim Singh. This trade union is the only institution that is owned by workers. And they can tell us anything what they want. They can determine whether you be in office or not. And the faster they come to realize that, and not only realize it, but be prepared to be a part of the change in society and the movement, it will be better for all of us. You know, I've looked at the movement. I've been looking at this movement. It's a period when people are afraid to become a shop steward. They are afraid to become a branch representative. leader or so on. They are afraid to become a central executive member of the unions. But they will stand at the sideline and critique. We have to stop it. But as I said earlier, that change will come. And it will come in two ways. One, they will voluntarily, I expect them to voluntarily take leadership through encouragement from people like me and you. And the other one, they'll be forced. You ever look at a cat? As a little boy, you never get a cat to say, yo, cat eat your food, and you get no way for pass out. And you see the cat, it jump back on you. What will happen with these employers? People, the workers will take so much and no more. Let me say it to you. You see this song you played there a while ago? It's up to you. Trinidad and Tobago. Let me take that as an example. And I hope these here learn. They had oil, and the business people, they do all kinds of things. And while they do that, the decay starts at the bottom. The decay starts there. Yeah. And they never really seek to address. They force governments to neglect many of those things, that the signs that were there. Mm-hmm. You see what we get? We get no guns. The last scotch that they found is bigger than what the army ever import, right? But these same businessmen now, you know where the family live? The family live in Florida. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And in Trinidad, where they get their factories and a little home, they get some big grills, steel fence, and armed guards, right? Because the people them that they neglected coming for them. And when they come in, they don't still they then decide, say, John may have been a good guy. They're looking for John, that John has been part and parcel of that group that exploited us. So there's no way we can run from anything.
There's no way we can run from anything. Lincoln Lewis here tonight. Some of you are asking for Coretta McDonald. It's true, Coretta has not been on this program for over a year. She does have a program advancing the cause, but I will take your all messages to her that she needs to come back on Politics 101. She's busy. She's the president of the TUC, general secretary of the teachers union. She's a parliamentarian. She's a parent, and she is an activist. She does her a lot of work, but I will take your messages to her because she helped to build this program in the early days she used to be on. And as one of you said, you all need the fire of Coretta McDonald to come back on Politics 101. I hope Lincoln Lewis takes the message, and I will give her a call to tell her that you all have missed her. And of course, Lincoln is so right that when you see a cat, you don't get nowhere for go. Nowhere for you jump on you. You know, Amoy in me village, cat drink out the milk. He said, close all doors and windows, chink all creases. And he pick up a wood for beat the cat. And I can't jump on him. He said, open all doors, open all windows, unchink all creases. After all, this a tiger family. Jump on them. And I think the moral of what Lincoln is saying here, when you beat up and beat up and beat up on workers and they have nowhere else to go, they jump on you. And governments all over the world keep forgetting that until they are on the ropes. He said, open all windows, open all doors, unchink all creases. After all, this a tiger family. He know tiger family before, but he still want to shut up all them door and window and beat them until I can't go up on 2 foot. I'm going to jump now. Thank you very much for joining us tonight on Politics 101, Brother Albert Morgan from there on the quarantine. It's always good to see you, brother. Lots of wisdom that you all bring to bear on this program and other programs as we continue this struggle. Brother Lincoln, the government came to the trade union movement recently, the TUC, and asked for suggestions as to what you all think should go into the budget. And you all were able to take some points from that 15-point plan or 20-point plan. Was it that you unveiled in May, Labor Day? Was it a 15 or 20 point?
15 point.
From the 15-point plan. And you all were able to make some suggestions to them as to what Labour wants to see in the budget for next year. First of all, were you all surprised that they came to you? And secondly, as the Stabrook News editorial was raising that point, do you all think that the suggestions you made are going to see the light of day in the budget? First question, were you surprised that they came to you? Secondly, what is it that you all said to them in terms of proposals? And third, are you optimistic about where it will go?
Let me tell you that while we would like to see the government see these proposals being positively considered and start to look at ways and means how they can be implemented. We know the PPP. The PPP like window dressing. We were surprised that they invited the TUC. We were definitely surprised that they invited the TUC. And when they invited us, we said, we will go because based on 149C of the Constitution, Article 13 and 149C of the Constitution, and 38, we have a responsibility under the Constitution to discharge on behalf of the workers of this country. The only two organizations by name are mentioned in the Constitution. That's the trade union and the cooperative. There are only two organizations by name that are there. So we said we need to discharge our responsibility based on the Constitution. We have gone there. We have made every word about the question of the national insurance. That's the only safety net we have here. We talk about it, about removing the deficit on this scheme. This deficit has been created through not respecting the recommendations of the actuaries over the years. Every time the actuaries say that, nearly every time the actuaries say, you need to increase the contribution, both the worker and the employer, to make the scheme liquid. The employers have gone to the government, sit with them and convince them not to do that, put that increase there. So more money in the employer's pocket. What has happened is that what was supposed to be there statutorily, contributing on behalf of the workers, they use that money to subsidize the various industries, the various companies. So we have argued that it must be based on the windfall that we get from the oil and gas, like that 211 million that somebody want to put to one side. That in itself, some of that can go to the NIS. You understand what I'm saying? We're saying make the NIS liquid. You used to get what we call from NIS, there used to be a time that if you get whatever your medication was, NIS used to, if you were diabetic or you get in a few illness, you could have gone and get the NIS paying for those medication. That has stopped because of the state of the NIS. It's not liquid, right? So we're saying move that deficit. But not only move the deficit, we want to go further than that with you. We're saying 1969, when the scheme was established, it made provision for unemployment benefit. And we live in a period now where people going to work today, a man left a job and he gone to a new one. And he said, I'm going to get some 10 years service here. I'm going to work for the next maybe 10 or 15 years here. But after 10 weeks or 10 months, they send the man home. The man get a family. He got to go look for another job. So then he get another job for 4 months. He needs to take care of his family. What we are saying, pay unemployment benefit that can keep that man or woman earning, getting something that can sustain the families during the period. We're saying put an unemployment benefit in place. Activate that element of it. You know, if you go to that NIS, a number of the things that we're talking about, we can use the NIS scheme as a barometer in determining how we can get wealth or pay wealth, cash transfer and all these things to workers, to citizens. Let me go on to tell you this. Article 27 of the Constitution says we are entitled to free education from nursery to university. That's a right. You can't tell me with all this money where we get around the place, or even if we don't have the money, that while I have a right in the Constitution, you're going to take away that right. And you're going to give me it when you feel I must get it. You are not elected to say when I must get my right. You are elected to make sure that you respect my right. Yeah. So we argue on that. This document speaks about that. We want to see the issue of free education from nursery to university. What are they doing? We have the university again. We wanted to sit with our dollars properly funded. We want to see all the schools here are being properly funded in such a way that they can deliver education for us. Let me give you an example. About nearly 50% of the people who enter private primary school, right? Or even high school, don't graduate, you know.
Yeah.
We have the Christian Labor College that We have the 1 year program with 9 subjects and allowing people. It's the only institution that provides for you an high school education that teaches you how to do a research. Check it out. But you're not going to give Critchlow money. You're not giving Critchlow money because they will say that they're not giving Critchlow Labour College money because a number of things. And one of the underlying thing that you say, Lincoln Lewis, they're going to get the money and they're going to do all kind of things inside there. I want to say to workers that they don't give Critchlow money because of what and who Critchlow represent.
Say that again.
What and who Critchlow represents, so they give you money. Right? We're talking about Professor Thomas ID. Professor Thomas say, give each household a certain amount of money. Since he opened him out, a whole set of politicians around, it can't happen. This gonna happen, that gonna happen. Without even doing a study. Without even bringing to the table evidence to support their position. But because it didn't come from them, it's no damn good. We put it back on the team. Let me give you an example. In our 15 points, we talk about taking money, put money towards renovating homes and beautifying, improving the aesthetics and this type of thing. I see Jagdio running around the place, say I give people money for things. He take the idea. But he will never say it was the TUC's idea. He will never say that. You want to know if I believe that they're going to do something? No. I want to tell you this. Anything that they do, they will do it in such a way to give to the world that they are concerned so much about the citizenry that we giving you something. Like how Ali called the people at State House, the teachers, and he's saying, I'm going to give it to you. As how Jagdio went 2000, it's 2000 or 2002, went to Kokwani and everything. You know what he said? He said, I will come. If I want money, I can give you money. Lincoln Lewis can't give you no money. Mm-hmm. It's we state money talking, we people money talking about, you know. Mm-hmm. He's talking about that money like it's e-money get in the pocket. But that is what we are confronted with. I'm saying to you that we are coming strong on these issues. We're not going to allow them to. We have our Congress opens on the 8th of next month. You're going to be 8th, the evening of the 8th, 9th, and 10th. All these issues that we're talking about, that you see in that 15 point, all of them will be discussed. And in this conference, let me tell you something about it. We invited every trade union. You can be in FITOG umbrella. You can be in the TUC umbrella. You can be out of the 2 umbrellas. We invited everybody, all the leaders. We want everybody to come there and have a say. Because when we finish, whatever it is, we're going to lay it in front of the government. We are late on in front of the government because nobody can say it is not the views of the workers, because those leaders, I consider them to be men and women who represent the views of workers in this country.
Who represent the views of the workers of this country. Lincoln Lewis here tonight, really bringing us up to date on what's happening on the labor front, centering the trade unions in our struggle for a better life in our country. We note the comments here tonight. Those of you who want to know more about the teacher struggle, yes, we are going to try to get Sister Coretta to come on here and to speak on that. And of course, we continue to monitor what the government is doing. We know that it is the PPP government that has gone furthest in terms of trying to marginalize trade unions. Yes, all governments have been guilty of not honoring to its letter the collective bargaining, but this government has gone the furthest. Jillian has said there's a provision for the children's benefit too. Anything about children in the 15-point plan, Brother Lincoln?
Yeah, we talk in the 15 point, we talk about putting in place what we call hot meals for students, for children across the country. A parent can opt in or opt out of such a program. What we're talking about is really going to the core of poverty in this country.
Yes.
Right? We want to address that. We're not going to give up, right? But I want to say to the workers of this country, you can't stay from a distance and expect us to win the battle. You can't only march for Palestine. You have to march to make sure that the things that are being done in the Gaza to the Palestinians and are being replicated here on you.
On you. And Brother Lincoln Lewis, we intended to speak about some other issues, but Lincoln has to go because he has another appointment. We've gone over already by 10, 11 minutes. So Lincoln, tell you what, we would wind up now, and sometime next week, we'll bring you back for us to talk about some of the related issues. Thank you very much, my brother, for coming through at short notice. Anything before you go?
Well, I tell you something, I'm happy that you have invited me. And I'm encouraged that there are still people who are the viewers who still have an interest in what the trade union is doing. I want to say to you, come on board. Thank you very much. And maybe together hold hands and crusade across this country.
Across this country. My condolences to Brother Jeffrey Thomas and the passing of his wife, a gentle lady. I know her from a distance, and your cousin too, I understand. So condolences are in order for you. She was out of West Bobis, number 28, you say, right?
Her mother from 28, but she's from BV.
She's from where?
BV.
She's from BV, her mother is from 28. And it shows how intertwined we are. I always say to people, when you're talking about Linden, you're really talking about West Bobis, primarily and East Coast, and the way in which our communities are intertwined. My condolences to Brother Jeffrey Thomas, former government minister, on the passing of his wife. Lincoln, thank you again, my brother.
Thank you very much.
And to you, our audience, thanks to you, always loyal. Without loyalty, we are not going to beat this system that we are fighting against and that we are fighting to change. We come in peace, we live in peace. Say hello to me, to Mr. Duncan. Mr. Duncan, is he home? Or is he still on tour? I think he may be home. And last time I saw him was in the United States of America. Say hello to him, to me, for me, as you all go into the ring, and then later on say good night to Brother Mark Bishop. Until tomorrow, I take my leave, and as usual, love is our watchword.